Arctic Star Exploration, operated by a team of proven mine finders, is focused on diamonds in Finland and the Northwest Territories of Canada. Work programs are underway in Finland and planned for Canada this summer. Arctic Star trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol ADD, on Frankfurt symbol 82A1, and the OTCQB symbol ASDZF. Please visit our website arcticstar.ca or call us at 604-689-1799.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Ted Dixon, CEO and co-founder of InkResearch.ca. He invented the mid-cap-oriented Inc. Canadian Insider Index, which is used by the Horizons Canadian Insider Index ETF, a 2017 Fund Data Fund Grade A award winner. His website, CanadianInsider.com. Welcome back to the show, Ted.
Well, thanks for having me back, Jim.
I know we usually try to avoid politics when it comes to talking about what's going on with the economy and what's hot and what's not, but will Trump's messy legal problems embolden countries like Canada and China at the negotiating table when it comes to trade?
I think it could, and I'll tell you why, because this is a pretty messy situation for Donald Trump. He'll have to ride out these legal woes, and they're quite, I'd say they're quite chronic in that they're not going to go away. The best hope that Mr. Trump has right now to kind of deal with this is to keep control of the House of Representatives in the midterm elections this fall. If they're unsuccessful at that, well, the Democrats are going to have a field day with the admission that his former lawyer, Mr. Cohen, made yesterday about being counseled by the candidate, which was Mr. Trump, to make these payments. So, this is something that the Democrats will probably be able to run with, that people will probably be able to, will probably tune into. Russia, Mueller probe, it's all sort of inside baseball stuff. And when you start talking about payments to people you may have had some kind of a relationship with, people will get their heads around that, I guess is my point. And it's a lot different than sort of nebulous kind of inside baseball politics for the the Washington crowd who loved the Mueller story. But this will have some legs. Trump will be able to manage it over time, but it's going to distract him, and this will show a fair amount of I'd say weakness in terms of his policy agenda. He just won't be able to charge through if he loses the House of Representatives like he may have been able to on the trade front. This is a big turn of events. So the question is, will Canada, China, and other countries sense this and maybe just take a little longer, a little harder line on their own negotiating positions, knowing that the Trump White House is now distracted with these legal issues?
Some have suggested that Trump's plan to release the U.S. strategic oil reserve might be politically connected in that it'll keep gasoline prices low going into the midterm elections.
I'm sure he's trying that, and I don't think he'd be the first president to do that, and that's pretty smart politics. So he needs to, he certainly needs to play up the economy, which, he can talk about very authoritatively, because the U.S. economy is booming. Now, it's all been done with debt and more government bond issuance, but it is what it is, and the U.S. economy is humming. That usually benefits incumbents. So, it wasn't. I don't think it was a foregone conclusion that the Republicans were going to lose the House of Representatives in the fall, but certainly the Cohen news of yesterday makes it a little harder to for them to hang on to the House of Representatives. That will, again, I think that will embolden countries that are at the negotiating table. Now, so what does that mean? A faster NAFTA settlement? Will that help the Canadian stock market? Maybe not. If the Canadian team feels it can negotiate a longer game here now, we may go even longer without a NAFTA deal, which, would be short-term pain for what the Canadian side would hope is long-term gain. I think up until the G7, the Canadian government really wanted a deal quickly, and I think the dynamics changed around the G7 when Trump and Trudeau had the fallout, and I think the dynamics could be changing here again with the weakened position of the Trump administration off of these legal issues. So it's a chronic issue for Mr. Trump. It's not something that's going to finish him off anytime soon. He's not going to resign from office over this by any stretch. But it's just something else he's going to have to really worry about. And I think this will prove to be quite a challenge for him in the next few months.
What do you think's key for Canada in the NAFTA negotiations? Well,
right now, I think they're looking at the sunset clause. That is still apparently on the table. So there's no way Canada can agree on that. And there are probably other issues. I think there seems to be, from what I've read, some agreement or meeting of the minds, or some sunshine on the auto rules for Canada and the U.S. I mean, one reason why Canada is not involved right now, I think, with the NAFTA negotiations is because the auto content rules really impact Mexico more than Canada, and it's more at stake for Mexico. So to get a NAFTA deal, U.S. and Mexico have to agree on that. And I'm not so sure Canada is a stumbling block on that part of the deal.
Well, I understand a typical auto made in Detroit or in Windsor goes across the border 6 or 7 times before they put the finishing touches on it. I mean, the parts and everything. Plus, it's just in time. Nothing's in a warehouse anymore. They're flipping that stuff back and forth in real time. So if you want efficient production, you can't have some customs officer examining it to see how much Canadian metal's in it.
Right. So there's lots of complications that will be involved with the implementation of this. It's very complicated, and that's why the auto section is taking so long, but it's very important. So that in itself is not too surprising and not too discouraging. However, the Mexicans have a lot more at stake than Canada does, I believe, on this. So let's not get too worried about the fact that Canada is not at the table. Look, when it comes down to the sunset clause, that's another issue. I think Canada and Mexico are aligned on that. I think that's something now that both sides could probably dig their heels in, although Mexico, it has its own political reality as well. They have a new government coming in, and I'm sure the new government would love not to have to take responsibility for the trade deal. So there's a few moving parts for NAFTA. Let's see how it plays out. But the Canadian negotiating position has somewhat improved over the last 48 hours. I mean, and in this game, you'll take what you can get. And anytime if you have a hardball opponent at the negotiating table, if their side weakens a little bit, well, that's a positive, from your perspective. So we will see how this plays out. It would be great if we got an NAFTA deal before the midterm elections, but there's still a lot of work to go on that.
Is it good that Canada has a floating currency that could act as a shock absorber if NAFTA doesn't work out?
Well, yes, in that it's already helping in terms of the tariffs. Now, the Canadian dollar has kind of bounced back off its lows because we reciprocated on the tariffs. But should the U.S. take the tariff boots to us again, the Canadian dollar would fall, and that's what you're seeing in China. And interestingly enough, the Chinese currency has depreciated almost enough to offset the 10% tariffs that have been imposed so far. And as the Chinese currency here, Jim, depreciates, it puts pressure on its other trading partners to depreciate their currencies, never mind, what the U.S. is doing with tariffs as well. So you've got an unfolding emerging markets crisis that a lot of it has its roots to do in the trade tiff between the U.S. and China. It's not solely due to that. But when it comes to tipping points and, setting things along on the road to unraveling, currencies are a good way to start. And, we're seeing that even today. We've seen the Argentine currency again weaken. So, this game or this chapter in terms of emerging markets is nowhere near being finished written here. It's still got a ways to go.
We'll have more with Ted Dixon right after the break.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Magnum Gold Corp. Inc., MGI on the TSX Venture Exchange. A 2015 drill program on the LH property intersected high-grade gold, including 16.9 meters of 13.58 grams and 11 meters of 20.66 grams per ton gold. A follow-up drill program is planned to further evaluate previously identified subsurface high-grade gold mineralization. Please visit our website at magnumgoldcorp.com.
MGX Minerals is revolutionizing the new energy economy with patented lithium extraction technology, replacing traditional solar evaporation using low-cost, low-energy nanofiltration. The first system of this paradigm shift technology is currently being commissioned. MGX Minerals trades on the CSE, symbol XMG, the OTCQB, symbol MGXMF, and Frankfurt, symbol 1MG. For more information, visit our website, mgxminerals.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Ted Dixon. Ted, the tariff war between China and the U.S., of course, is involved now most of the world, and it's tied with China's currency. Do you see the Chinese actively trying to devalue their currency to try to do that, or is that just a matter of what happens when you get involved in a currency or in a trade war?
Well, I think it's a combination of both. The natural tendency of a free-floating exchange rate is to depreciate if you're being hit with tariffs. Now, the Chinese currency is not what I would call free-floating, so you do have intervention there on the government's behalf. And, as these talks started in Washington this week between these low-level Chinese bureaucrats and Treasury bureaucrats, you notice that the Chinese renminbi actually increased in value. Well, I don't think that was an accident. They were going to the Treasury. The Treasury, every year, I believe it is, they have to put out a report whether a currency is being manipulated or not. So I don't think it was a coincidence that the Chinese currency strengthened right when these negotiations are about to start again. And we'll see what happens to it if the negotiations go off the rails. I would expect it's going to start to weaken again if the negotiations don't amount to anything, and we'll have to see.
Saudi Arabia has announced that it's taking its IPO off the table for Aramco. What do you make of that, and what could that do to oil prices?
Well, that's a very interesting timing that it came after this tiff with Canada. I wouldn't want to draw any conclusions that they're related, but certainly it's an interesting timing of that. And with respect to the oil price, I'm not sure what that signals in terms of the oil price. I mean, it's probably on balance a positive for the oil price that they're pulling out the IPO, in that I think there was some thinking that the Saudis were trying to, time the top of the oil market. So if they're pulling it, maybe there's, going to be some thinking, well, the oil market hasn't popped here and the Saudis will be back in 5 years or whenever. So, but it's really hard to say what drove that decision. I mean, Saudi Arabia is not the most transparent country in the world to begin with. So, we may never know what really triggered that.
Well, Mike Swanson just had a theory that the Saudis went to the New York Stock Exchange, and of course they demanded full disclosure, and the Saudis refused to give it. Then they went to London asking for a special deal on their IPO, and again, the British Stock Exchange said, no, we need full disclosure before we can offer it to our clients. And after that, they pulled it. So you're probably right. They don't want to really let you know what's going on behind the scenes.
Right. I think that's part of their culture, certainly with the royal family, and that may well have factored into it for sure. So,
and Mike also felt
they may be back.
Yeah, and Mike also felt their treatment of Canada told other possible investors, you can't trust what we do because, up until the very last second, Canada and Saudi Arabia had a good political relationship. Why would it be the same, or why not the same for business? Happy today, angry with you tomorrow.
Right. So it's never a great confidence builder when you see one party being able or feeling they can blackmail another party with economic clout. So that may have had something to do with it. It was probably a combination of things, but the world will have to live without a piece of the Saudi oil industry on its stock exchange, and things will tick along, I'm sure, just fine.
We'll have more with Ted Dixon right after this.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp., RMO, on the TSX Venture Exchange. Rainy Mountain's Brunswick property is located in the Rideout Shear Zone in Ontario, with grab samples running as high as 32 grams per ton gold. A follow-up drill program to test numerous targets located by recent groundwork is planned for early 2018. Please visit our website at rmroyalty.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're chatting with Ted Dixon. Ted, will junior discoveries perk up the gold market?
We wrote about this to our clients on Monday. Jim, as every gold investor knows, the last couple of weeks in the market, have just been awful for gold investors. Particularly the week before last, it was an elevator trip down for major gold producers on the major stock markets. But something very interesting happened though last week, that we noticed, and that was that the junior miners actually seem to outperform the seniors. When you have a weekly show with John Kaiser, and he actually produces an index, a bottom fishing index. And what's nice about that is it's got over 100 stocks in it, and they're all mining stocks. The venture exchange, used to be a mining index, but now it's got marijuana and healthcare, and blockchain in it. So it's not a pure mining index, but the Kaiser index, his index actually, it fell a little bit last week, but it was less than 2%, and the major index, the TSX Gold Index was down double digits. So it was noticeable that maybe the washout has already happened with the juniors, and we've seen an uptick in volumes and speculative activity around some plays, notably BC Golden Triangle. They're in their drilling season, releasing a lot of news. We've seen some stocks perk up that I know John has talked about on your show. So, maybe we're seeing the early signs of money moving into the gold market on the speculative level, which could be, and now I'm being speculative here in this theory. We could be seeing an early sea change in terms of, global speculative appetite for the gold group. It's been forgotten. It's been shunned. People went into Bitcoin. People went into FANGs. No one cared about gold. Well, if we get a couple of hot discoveries going, in BC or in Mexico or elsewhere, that starts to generate some interest, even with depressed gold prices. Boy, look out if gold turns around here and, has made a bottom. So let's keep an eye on the juniors. I think the junior gold mining, it's out of favor with so many investors. So many people have left it for dead. And, we've been waiting and waiting for it to turn around. But, this is a season where lots of news is hitting. Let's see how the volumes do on some of these plays. We may be in store for a comeback here on the junior gold side now that, Bitcoin has seemed to have had its, and cryptocurrencies have had their day, and, pot stocks have kind of had their day. Sure, there'll be some opportunities there as we get into the legal framework. But the big run up, the big excitement, I think, is probably past for pot stocks. Certainly it seems to have passed for blockchain, cryptocurrencies. Will junior gold miners come back and fill that vacuum? Let's see.
Ted, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Well, thanks for having us back.
My guest has been Ted Dixon, CEO and co-founder of InkResearch.ca, his website, CanadianInsider.com. You're listening to HowStreet.com radio. Find us on Twitter @HowStreet. Our popular YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Questions for the show or our guests, like Ted, can be sent to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.